Hey, good morning. Good morning. I notice I still have like my glasses on top of my head. These are my so I know sometimes people see these and they're like, "What are they?" Because we never see you wear glasses. These are my like anti-glare, my blue light glasses for when I'm on the computer a lot. And I've been on the computer a lot over the last couple days, trying to get classes up and running and doing some stuff for bookkeeper training school and clients and all the things. And so I try to keep those on when I am working on the computer, but a lot of times I forget about them and they end up spending a lot of time on top of my head. so, if you are not in the Small Biz Mama group, um, we have a group where you're welcome to join. Um, it's basically talks about business and life and parenting, and it's for people who want to start a business or have just started a business. So it's kind of a newer business group, right? If you're new to business or you want to start a business. And so I asked in there over the weekend, um, what what's holding you back, what's stopping you from starting or growing your business. And it's really interesting because whenever I talk to people about this, who are in the stuck phase near the beginning, the answer is always the same. It manifests itself a little bit differently. And so, we've got people that, I'm worried I'm not good enough to do this. I'm worried I don't have enough time. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I don't know what the future will look like. Um, I don't know what to say to get clients. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I feel like I need to know everything. I don't have the confidence. You notice it's kind of all the same stuff, right? It all boils down to fear, right? I'm afraid. And I think it's really interesting. I was actually having a conversation with somebody the other day, and she told me, she was like, I can't make a decision because I'm so afraid I'm going to make the wrong decision. Right? Has that ever happened to you? Where you just sit there and you're like, I can't even move, right? Because I'm so afraid that I'm going to do the wrong thing. And I bet you, for some of you, that's happening right now, right? Where there is this, um, where there's this mode that I'm like, I'm going to stay where I am. And even though things suck, right? Um, I'm not going to do anything. And the thing that I always ask people when I'm coaching them through this is, I'm like, okay, so what is, let's say that you start a business, okay? Or let's say you go into a training program or you do something, okay? Let's say that you move, okay? And you make some progress and you start moving forward. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay? What is the worst thing that's going to happen if you decide that you're going to start a business? Okay? Now, I'm not saying like quit your job and start a business. I'm just talking about like you start a little side hustle, right? Because everybody's got a little side hustle now. Hell, I have two side hustles, right? And they just happen to be big side hustles. But what if you started a side hustle? What if you took, an hour a day, maybe either first thing in the morning or after the kids go to bed, and you started to work on something? Whatever your something is, right? So maybe it's bookkeeper training school. Maybe it's a VA course. Maybe it's beefing up your computer skills. Maybe you want to learn how to code. Maybe you want to learn how to sell. Maybe you want to improve your skills for your current job. Whatever that thing is, what if you just spent an hour a day just working on it? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Right now, if you buy a training program, like let's say you buy a bookkeeper training school and you go through it for 3 weeks and you do your hour a day, which, in 3 weeks, if you did that, that would get you, a good chunk of the way through the course. and you decide this isn't for me, then you email us and we give you a refund, and you get all your money back, and you spent, you spent 21 hours in the course, and you probably learned some things, and now you've got more knowledge. I mean, I think a lot of times, like, we jump to, like, either I stay where I am or I try something else and it goes wrong and it crashes and burns, and it's like, and that's not really what happens. But our brains go to, like, worst case scenario, right? Like, oh my goodness. Like, if I decide to do this thing and it doesn't work, um, my house is gonna burn down, my friends are gonna leave me. Like, we go to extremes. And so what I really want you to do, when fear starts popping up for you, whatever it looks like, it's like people are like, I need to know everything. I'm like, okay, people, love you. I've been doing this for 20 years. 20 years, okay? I don't know everything. It's impossible to know everything. But you know what's really cool that was here that was not here when I first started? Google, right? We have so much information at our fingertips that we can find the answers, right? The people that are in Bookkeeper Training School, for those of you that are in the course, if you're in the Empowered Bookkeeper Network, you can ask questions. You have 650 people, right, that you can ask questions of in the group. Don't go to extremes. Just think like, okay. And like that always really, really helps me. So I'm going to tell you a story. And I just dealt with this today. Okay. So, I still have like some money issues from when Jeff and I were broke, that I'm still working through. Okay. And so I found out yesterday that a payment to Bank of America did not go through, because their system messed up. Okay. And like, I am freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to trash my credit and it's going to do this. And oh my God. Ah! And then I sat down and go, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to call them tomorrow. I'm still in the grace period. My payment's not even late. Okay. I'm still in the grace period. It's not going to affect my credit. It's not, I'm going to be annoyed because I have to call them, right, to get this straightened out. Okay. And I find that when I sit and I go through that exercise where I say, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, really, what's the worst that's going to happen? Not what my brain can come up with, and dragons and monsters and whatnot, but what's really the worst that could happen. And when you go through and you go through that exercise, okay? And if you need help with this, like I said, like, you can post it in the group, and we can help you with that, okay? But sitting down and doing that exercise is so phenomenally helpful, I think. So I want you to do that. So, like, we have people who said, the feeling of not knowing everything, therefore I don't have confidence. I love Brendon Burchard's definition of confidence. His definition of confidence is the knowledge that I can find the answer. That's confidence, right? And I absolutely love that. I think that's such a great answer, because when you say, I cannot be confident because I don't know everything, you can't hit that bar. Nobody can hit that bar, right? I mean, think about it. It's like, if you are, if you go to your doctor doesn't know everything, right? Because things are constantly changing. They don't even know everything about their specialty, right? They've got to do research. When you go to an attorney's not going to know everything. They have to do research. Your accountant is going to have to do research, right? even when I've worked with tradespeople before, and I've said, okay, so how are we going to handle this? Like, what are we going to do with this thing? They're like, okay, well, let's do some research to see, what's the best material for this, or what's the best solution for this, or what's the best new piece of equipment for this. Nobody knows everything. Okay? Do not hold yourself to that bar because it's just not practical. Okay? So let's stop trying to be perfect. Let's stop trying, to be God, okay, and know everything, okay? Because we're just not supposed to, right? Okay. Um, so I'm going through here. I'm looking at the comments. So somebody said, I'm scared to death of QBO. Okay, so one of the things I love about QuickBooks, and the reason I stay with QuickBooks, is that you can fix anything in QuickBooks. Anything QuickBooks can be deleted, can be changed. And if you can lock things down, so that way you need a password to change things, right? But anything QuickBooks can be fixed. That's why I love that software. It is so good. Let's see. I'm scared to quit my job. I'm scared to work for myself because it's not certain. Okay. I think a lot of you found out in the last year that employment is not certain either. I think there's something comfortable about getting a paycheck on a regular basis. But I think as a lot of people have found over this last year that it's just there's no safety in a paycheck, right? There's no security. And we've seen people in union jobs that thought that their jobs were safe. We've seen people in traditionally really secure fields that were not safe, right? So I think that I think you can't, again, it's a major fear that people have, I think. But again, okay, so let's say that you start your business and it's not working for you for whatever reason. What's the worst that could happen? Right? Because nobody's encouraging you to like leap off a cliff with no clients, right? But once you start building up your client base and you get to a point where you say, okay, I can now make this transition, right? I've got, my clients, right? With whatever you're doing, then you can make that leap, right? But nobody's saying like, okay, you're signing up to, make whatever transition you want to make, start whatever business, and you've got to quit your job tomorrow, right? That's not how this works. And again, I think it's that thought of I have to go in extremes, right? Fear always works in extremes. And so yeah, so it's really interesting because, whenever I talk to people in that space, it's all about fear. Okay. And so again, I would encourage you to go back, think about like all the objections. So if you're in the position where you're looking to start a business or you're stuck in your business, I find that journaling really helps when I'm stuck. And it doesn't have to be like a formal, pretty journal. Like it could just be a piece of notebook paper. But write down what it is that you're afraid of. Right? What are you afraid you can't do? What are you afraid you can't know? And start writing about it, right? So it's interesting. So I just had a whole bunch of comments pop. So let's see. This is helping me mentally start to feel less overwhelmed at jumping into BTS. I purchased in December and I only have time after they go to bed, but even 30 minutes a night is possible. I just need to do it. Yeah. So Jessica, what I would recommend for you is I would recommend putting the time on your calendar. Set an alarm on your phone, okay? And say, all right, this is when I'm going to work on this, okay? Because if you put in, if even if you put in 30 minutes a day and it's consistent, and what I recommend, if you can, the way that we've structured bookkeeper training school is you can do a lot with just listening. We've actually created audio files for most of the training. And so you could actually go through, you could either download that, right? Or you can just have it playing, like if you're in your spot with Wi Fi. I listen in the shower every morning. I'm listening to an audiobook, a training, a podcast, something. And I do that while I'm getting ready. And so when I do that, that's 45 minutes a day. That's pretty much running for me. Um, and so, a lot of us are like, I don't have time. Um, but there's lots of time in the margins. Okay. And so I typically am listening to something when I'm cooking dinner, even if it's, I've got one earbud in and I've got the other ear on Eric, while I'm making dinner. Um, Try to find those moments when you're emptying the dishwasher, when you're folding laundry. Like I almost always have some sort, and I love education. I always have something going. Um, and so those little bits while you're doing other things, I think a lot of times we think that like in order to learn, like we have to be sitting there in the computer, in the chair, 100% focused. And I'm sorry, but for most of us, that's just not reality, you know? And so I'm always reading in the margins. Yeah, definitely no job security. I was laid off after 21 years. Yeah, I'm seeing people that thought like, that they were going to retire with their employers 20 years, 25 years, and are now have been laid off. So, I would really encourage you that no matter what you do, that you always have a plan for something else. That you always have a plan for, okay, if this doesn't work, what happens next? Um, because, I think that I think that often when that happens to people, right, when they get laid off or their circumstances change, it kind of upends everything because that's how they've identified themselves, right? And that's why it's like, um, we have like 6 or 7 streams of income here, and I always have a thing. So like I tell Jeff, I'm like, worst case, I'll go wait tables. You know, I've waited tables in high school and in college. Worst case, I will wait tables. I can post on my wall at any point, like, hey, I'm taking on new clients. Um, I can clean, I can knit, I can grow vegetables. Um, I'm pretty handy with tools. Um, I can tutor people in math. Like there are just all these things. Like I'm like, okay, do. Um, like I have this like ongoing list in my head. Like, okay, if this thing doesn't work out, then this is what I'll do. Um, I'll go back to, this is my last semester teaching. I'll go back to teaching again, if I have to. Um, but I always kind of have, other plans for things that I could do. And it's funny because when you do that, right, when you have that plan, like I'll become an Uber driver if I have to, or I will, I'll go deliver for DoorDash, or I will go like, we'll figure it out. And Jeff's kind of the same way that he's like, worst case, I'll go build websites, or I'll go do programming, or I'll build databases for people, or, you know. And I think when you have that mentality where you know that you have options, and they might not be the greatest options, they're not the ideal options, but when you know that there's always another option out there, it's not as scary. Because I think a lot of times we believe that whatever decision we make is the decision we have to live with forever. And I see this in bookkeeper training school all the time when I talk to people about their ideal client. And I say, okay, listen, you got to pick an ideal client for right now just so that you have somebody to talk to, right? Your ideal client is the person that you talk to when you do all your marketing. And people are so resistant to nailing down their ideal client And I think it's because they feel that this is the client they have to work with for the rest of eternity. And I'll tell you that so let's see, this is year number 14 of my firm. Okay. Um, 2007 was the first, was the first tax season I did. Um, and so my ideal client has changed at least half a dozen times in 14 years. Okay. And that's okay. Because you might say, like, you know what, this is who I need, who I want to work with right now based off the information I have, right? And as you gather more information, right? Because again, we're always learning. We don't need to know everything right now. You can say, okay, you know what? Oh, wait, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, I didn't even know people did this. I want to go work with those people. And so what you do is you say, okay, I'm going to keep the clients I have. I'm not going to market to those clients anymore, but I'm going to keep the customers that I have. And then I'm going to go try to get some customers over there in that industry. And that's what I did. So it's funny because, like, when I tell people I work with people in the online space, right? But people are like, wait a minute, you have auto repair people and you've got florists and you've got hairstylists. Well, yeah, those are my legacy clients, and I'm not going to get rid of them just because I'm working with these people, right? But when I market my firm, I'm marketing to online business owners, right? I still have all the knowledge, and sometimes I get approached by people who are not my ideal client. And the cool thing is I can sit there and go, yeah, I want to work with you. I like you, right? We get along really well. Yeah, I want to work with you. Not everybody has to be your ideal client. Okay? And it's funny, so I'll tell you the story. Okay? And then I'll go. Because I've been going for like 20 minutes. So I had somebody who messaged me a couple days ago on LinkedIn and said, hey, listen, I found your course. My wife got your ad, and she's, she sent me the link to your course, and your course sounds great. But you say it's for moms. I'm not a mom. I'm a guy. Would you make an exception so that I can join your course? And I was like, oh, of course. Of course, of course, of course. Like, we have guys, we've got couples, we have people who aren't moms. We have a very diverse group in bookkeeper training school. But it's funny because I think a lot of people think, like, just because you talk to a particular person or industry, that you'll never get approached by somebody else. Okay? And that's just not true. We have some people who just buy, right? Assuming that anybody can buy, and that's the truth. But we have people that'll, like, ask me, like, can I buy? I'm not a mom, or, I'm a guy or whatever. I'm like, sure, come on in. But it's like, I think people believe that, like, if they try to talk to one person, that they're going to exclude the rest of the world. And that's just not the case. I still have people all the time that approach me and say, hey, I know you work with online businesses, but I do this. I really want to work with you. Would you consider taking on a client like this? And so it's, I just think that, having the mentality that there are always other options, that there's always other decisions that you can make, that no decision is forever, is so super helpful. And so I would love to see you this week, right? Just try to open up to that possibility. That not every decision's forever. That not, that you can change course. And that not everything is absolute. Okay? And so I really hope that is helpful, helpful for you guys. So keep your questions coming. We have a brand new podcast episode out today. So you can go to smallbizmama.com and check that out. And let me actually check to see. Hold on. Let me see what this week's topic is. Um, oh, this is a great one. So, what do you do when an emergency interferes with your small business? Um, so that is episode number 43 of the podcast. It just dropped this morning. And I basically talk about the 5 steps that you need to do if there is an emergency that comes up. And it doesn't have to be business related, it can be life related, but I think a lot of solopreneurs worry about this. Um, how do you run your business if you get sick? What do you do? And so I go through the 5 steps that I go through when we have an issue around here. Okay, so keep your business coming, and or keep your questions coming. Start that side hustle. Like if you're on the fence, like start, okay, and just move at whatever pace you can move to get things rolling. I hope that you found this helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.